This podcast serves Middle Tennessee every weekday morning, and it's made possible by member support. Learn how you can make a difference at WPLN.org/support.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's June 12th, 2025. On this day in 1967, the U.S. Supreme Court issued its ruling in a case called Loving v. Virginia. The unanimous decision declared that state laws banning interracial marriage were unconstitutional based on a couple of factors. For one thing, the ruling said that marriage is, quote, one of the vital personal rights essential to the orderly pursuit of happiness. What's more, it found that it was a violation of the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause to let some non-whites marry, but keep others from doing so. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. 10 years ago this month, the Loving decision was cited as precedent for another landmark Supreme Court ruling regarding marriage. I will always remember that the decision in Obergefell versus Hodges was handed down in June because news that gay marriage had been legalized hit the morning that Nashville's LGBTQ community was preparing for the start of the local Pride celebration, and I was assigned to go out and get man-on-the-street comments. The first official event of Pride wasn't supposed to start until that late afternoon or evening on the public square downtown, but my gut told me to go ahead and head in that direction. And sure enough, I found a handful of people already gathering in front of the Metro Courthouse with rainbow flags and celebratory signs that they'd rushed to make. They were so excited. They just had to mark the event with other people. They couldn't wait until that night, and they were confident that if they just went out onto the square, they'd find others who had the same instinct. The joy was palpable. It was like few other things that I'd experienced. At the time, the Nashville-based Southern Baptist Convention was far from silent on the matter. When the nation's high court heard arguments in the case, SBC leadership issued a call for the church's members to pray for the justices in hopes that they would keep marriage between a man and a woman. Leading up to it, they held conferences preparing congregations for what they called a post-same-sex marriage America. And the man who headed up the denomination's public policy arm at the time, Russell Moore, said they would, quote, rather be on the wrong side of history than the wrong side of Jesus. Well, this week, the SBC held its annual meeting, and on Tuesday, the Baptists once again spoke loudly in opposition to gay marriage. Now, this meeting is huge. It is the nation's largest Protestant group, after all. Roughly 10,000 people registered for this year's meeting, which is at the Dallas Convention Center. There are all kinds of ancillary events at these things. Basically, every subgroup or related organization of Baptists you can imagine throws some kind of lunch or reception or meet and greet. And for 2 days, all of those thousands of congregational representatives, called messengers, got together in one room to vote on new leaders for the coming year, the SBC's budget, and policy issues. Resolution number 5 this year was subtitled On Restoring Moral Clarity Through God's Design for Gender, Marriage, and the Family. It's pretty long, about a page and a half of fairly small print. It covers more than just the Obergefell ruling, although it does call that out by name, along with Planned Parenthood, transgender issues, and commercial surrogacy. And about all of those, the resolution calls for, quote, the overturning of laws and court rulings, including Obergefell versus Hodges, unquote, that don't align with Southern Baptist values, which the resolution presents as being God's undeniable design for humanity. Now, most of the press coverage I've seen of this vote focuses on the gay marriage piece of it. But as I said, there are other issues covered by this resolution that essentially encourage Southern Baptist churchgoers to actively fight for legal changes and gives denominational leaders the go-ahead to do the same in their official capacity. Like I said, Planned Parenthood is name-checked. The resolution calls for the complete and permanent defunding of that reproductive health care nonprofit. It essentially rebukes any policy that supports the rights of trans people to choose how they identify their gender in public, much less affirm that gender through healthcare options. And it specifically calls on Christians to celebrate and embrace marriage and childbearing, and echoes alarmist pronatalist propaganda about the declining birth rate, which the resolution characterizes as a result of, quote, pursuing willful childlessness. There was no debate on the resolution. It easily passed. In just a few minutes, an excerpt from the newest episode of The Country in Our Hearts. Rose Gilbert's reporting for WPLN that took her all the way to Kurdistan. That's coming up after the newscast.
Thematic Static on WNXP is the mixtape we make together, a themed set loosely organized by you, the listener, handpicking songs according to a theme. Airing first Thursdays at 9 a.m. and again Saturdays at 9 a.m., Thematic Static plucks your requests from the socials at WNXP Nashville and by voice memo at 615-320-9100. Thematic Static, the mixtape we make together, supported by United Record Pressing, only on WNXP.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. The Tennessee Attorney General and Students for Fair Admissions, Inc. are suing the U.S. Department of Education, claiming one of their programs is discriminatory. The Hispanic Serving Institution is a program that provides federal funding for students enrolled in colleges and universities where Hispanic students make up at least 25% of the student body. Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti says the grant discriminates against students based on ethnicity and calls it unconstitutional. He also says the grant excludes Hispanic students who attend colleges that don't meet the program's quota. The board of directors for the Tennessee Valley Authority is now down to just 3 members. President Donald Trump fired member Beth Geer this week without citing any reasons for the termination. Geer is the chief of staff to former Vice President Al Gore and was nominated to the board by former President Joe Biden. Geer is the 3rd board member to be fired by Trump since March. The board has 9 seats and needs at least 5 filled to take official action. Trump has not nominated anyone to the TVA board since taking office. Concerns are mounting about the safety of a high-traffic crosswalk in Nashville's Germantown neighborhood after a pickup truck fatally struck a woman. Nashville police say 77-year-old Dorothy Dot Dobbins was walking her dog Sunday evening before sunset when she was hit in the crosswalk on 3rd Avenue North near Van Buren Street. Dobbins was a retired leader in the city's legal aid and family law communities and helped open Nashville's first domestic violence shelter. The pickup truck driver was country music singer Connor Smith, who's gained a following in the past year and who performed at CMA Fest. Police say he failed to yield the right-of-way. He has not been charged. WSMV reports neighbors worry drivers aren't careful around the crosswalk, and the district's council member is examining whether signage can be improved. Across town, a second pedestrian was also killed this week when struck by a minivan. The man was hit Tuesday night on Murfreesboro Pike near Edge Lake Drive. Last month, a New York City-based theater company called Theater of War performed a reading of an investigation by one of WPLN's criminal justice reporters. Hollywood actors were brought in to read a story by Paige Flager about domestic violence in rural areas. It focused on 2 counties, Lewis County, where the judge is defendant-friendly, and Scott County, which made changes to break the cycles of abusive behavior. Theater of War then hosted a discussion with audience members from New York and Tennessee. Here's a clip from the show. It features the theater's host, Brian Dories, and an audience member, Percy West, who grew up in a home with domestic violence in New York.
It was like a cycle of continuous abuse because there was no consequences. And I can relate with the fact that in Lewis County, that's how it was in Brooklyn. And so it touches me because it's like I'm listening to it and I'm reliving a story of my mother's life, what happened with and what we experienced growing up and in the household.
That's so powerful. Thank you. There's so much that divides us in this country, but look at the things that can connect us when we acknowledge that we have shared experiences. I hear you saying there was abuse in your home, and I hear you say it was another abuse to have us be in a system that wouldn't do anything about that abuse, would allow it to be perpetuated.
You can listen to the full special episode of Theater of War on This Is Nashville on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. In January, Bonnaroo announced a predictably good musical lineup with Tyler, the Creator, and Vampire Weekend among the headliners. The Middle Tennessee Music Festival is happening this weekend, but music reporter Justin Barney says there is one thing festival organizers could not have predicted 6 months ago.
The rain. As of right now, the Doppler has it raining every single day of the festival, with thunderstorms predicted for Saturday and Sunday. Some hardcore fans will tell you that the prospect of seeing Insane Clown Posse tonight in a muddy pit is an ideal music festival experience. but most people will be annoyed. So if you are making the trek this weekend, think about taking a poncho.
Other WNXP favorites at the festival include Remy Wolf, Justice, and King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard. What do you do when you come across a snake in your yard or at a park? Avoid it and don't kill it. It's illegal in Tennessee. This extends to all species, venomous or non-venomous. Killing a snake can get you a fine of up to $25,000 or even prison time. There is one exception. If you or your kids are in immediate danger, you have the right to protect yourself. Park rangers say the reptiles are more afraid of you than you are of them, and most of the bites and injuries happen when a person bothers the animal. WPLN's Daily Show, This is Nashville, is talking all about snakes today. You can listen at noon, catch the rebroadcast at 7 p.m., or after the show initially airs, it will be broadcast, if you will, in the This is Nashville podcast feed. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Episode 2 of Nashville Public Radio's new series, The Country in Our Hearts, is out today. Featured in this show is a man named Aran. His father ran away from home as a teenager to become a Peshmerga, a Kurdish freedom fighter. His family tells WPLN's Rose Gilbert the story over breakfast in Iraqi Kurdistan.
Have you had breakfast? You're not hungry?
We slip off our shoes at the door and head inside to enjoy a hearty breakfast spread. Fruit, cheese, yogurt, lavash bread, and small, tender cuts of lamb. Aran and I aren't the only visitors either. The house is full of more family who also happen to be in town from Nashville, including Aran's Aunt Fauzia, his father's sister. She joins us for breakfast, taking a seat next to me. As we eat, she begins to tell me about her brother, Aran's father. During the time I'd spent with Nash and Aran, I had started to get a picture of their father, the Peshmerga commander, the warrior, the larger-than-life patriarch. But Fauzia knew him first as her big brother Knife. She remembers the day he snuck off to join the Peshmerga. He was only about 13 years old.
I remember vividly. They went to him and it was another villager. They both joined at the same time. They heard that there was Peshmerga forces in Qumri, so they went, obviously, sneakily. She's like, but I was the first one to know, and I gave the news to my parents. And that was the reaction she did. She said, that's the reaction my grandma, her mom did.
Mimicking her mother's panic, she claps her palms to her cheeks and buries her face in her hands.
She goes, oh my God, okay, so now I can just label my son dead. She's like, her mom was like, oh my God, so now I can just consider him a martyr, you know?
He came home after enlisting with a big rifle on his back.
She's like, half of the muzzle, like not half, but about an inch or two of the muzzle, you would see it had dirt in it from dragging it on the walk. But she's like, and then we all just started crying.
Knife begged his parents for forgiveness again and again, but he didn't regret joining.
She said he told his mom, he was like, Mom, if I don't, and the next person, then we won't ever have a Kurdish identity.
While reporting on Nashville's Kurdish community, just about everyone I met had a father or uncle or brother who had been in the Peshmerga, or they'd been a fighter themselves. Some had joined as teenagers, but 13 still stuck out to me as young. After signing up, Knife was gone for months at a time, off in the mountains fighting for the Kurdish cause, with only the occasional letter to his family. When he could visit, it was a huge relief and a cause for celebration. And then he would leave again.
Whenever he would leave, she said we wouldn't clean the house for a day or two. Because, it was kind of like a farewell. We didn't know if he would come back. And she said there'll be days sometime, a day or two sometime, we wouldn't even eat. Because all we were, everybody was worried and crying. Because one, young, and two, he's in the Peshmerga. Which, the definition in front of death,
The word Peshmerga translates roughly to one who faces death. They are mythic, heroic figures in Kurdish culture, underdog warriors fighting for freedom against bigger, stronger opponents. Fawzia tells me that when any Peshmerga came to town, they were welcomed as heroes. Villagers risked the wrath of the Ba'athist regime to feed and shelter them as best they could.
She said, if you own one chicken, if you knew the Peshmerga were coming, she said that day they would make sure to slaughter that chicken and cook it for them because they knew the hardship that they were going. They knew they were in the mountains. They didn't enjoy a good hot meal.
And if it wasn't safe to come out into the open, the local women would smuggle provisions to the fighters in their mountain hideouts. Stuff that was easy to carry, like dried yogurt, rice, the thin lavash bread we ate for breakfast. Fawzia says the Iraqi soldiers stationed in the region caught on pretty quickly, but many of them let it happen anyway. She remembers 2 guards in particular were especially lenient.
They were very, very generous. And she said a lot of times they would even, when they were out on lookout, they would turn their eye when the Peshmerga would come into town.
You can hear full episodes of The Country in Our Hearts at WPLN/Kurdistan or wherever you get your podcasts. We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. So subscribe in your favorite podcasting app to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you like this, you'll probably enjoy the Nashvillager newsletter too. You'll get perspective from more of my colleagues at Nashville Public Radio and links to the stories we're following. Sign up for those daily emails at WPLN.org/Nashvillager. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.